You know, this is a bit of a personal topic for me, and I'm sure it's the same for many others, but I've been really mulling it over for a while now. Growing up under the poverty line is rough. Being young and naive doesn't make it better. Not knowing how the world as a whole operates, you don't understand why you don't have the luxuries that other kids have, or why you've been eating the same dinners every night, or if you're even going to have dinner that night. Feeling frustration over the constant broken promises due to money constraints, it's rough. Like, really rough. But if there's anything that I can take with me from my upbringing, it's how to appreciate what you have. And back then, all I had were my games. I was born in '96, but my first and only console for a good while was a Super Nintendo, and the small handful of games that I had for it, and I had a blast with that thing. If I didn't have school that day, I'd head downstairs to this tiny room that had an old wooden box CRT from the 70s that my SNES was hooked up to. I'd pick between Super Mario Kart, Super Mario World, Super Pitfall, or Donkey Kong Country, and that's what I'd play until I got tired of it. And that was young Phil's life until he got an upgrade. And boy, was this an upgrade in my eyes. A used Toys R Us golden N64 with another handful of killer games. Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64, Paper Mario, and Smash 64. Those games were my life for years. Paper Mario specifically made me feel a certain type of way that I haven't felt in years. It was a completely different take on the Mushroom Kingdom to me. The world felt alive, the characters were memorable, and the story was really fun to go along with. I eventually got a GameCube and PS2 and got to experience some gems on those too. The Jack series, Ratchet and Clank series, Super Mario Sunshine, and Luigi's Mansion, among others. However, those two consoles ran into let's just say domestic complications after I got a bad case of tonsillitis, and leave it at that. But I did have this old E-Machines PC, but I didn't use it much. That is until I moved to upstate PA and met my new next-door neighbors who were big PC gaming connoisseurs. And then I finally got my first taste of PC gaming, and I almost didn't look back. They had probably 5 computers in that house, and they invited me over to play Red Faction with them. I then proceeded to have the time of my life, let me tell you. They set up this local server with some custom maps, and then we all connected and went ham. My first LAN party was magical, and those Red Faction custom maps only added to it. It was hectic, with most of our shootouts devolving into railgun duels from across the map. That is, until someone found the hidden sniper spot in the Flintstones Rats map, then it devolved into ganging up on the bastard hiding behind the one-sided wall, or finally getting that little kill box to yourself, only for your friend to get a lucky shot with a railgun. Yeah, totally a lucky shot, not screen peeking, you son of a fuck. My naive 11-year-old mind thought that was peak gaming, that it couldn't be beat. But then they broke out the Command & Conquer 2v2s and blew my standards out of the water. Again. I was hooked. Being able to build massive armies of tanks and soldiers all while harassing your enemies so they don't find out about the orbital ion cannon you're building. But then panicking when you get the text notice that they completed their super weapon first, and you only have a few minutes to either pray and make your amends, or throw everything you have at them so your command center doesn't get a nice and lovely gift of a GLA Scud barrage. Then they put me on to Return to Castle Wolfenstein. We'd join these assault maps where you'd have to complete multiplayer objectives like storming a beach bunker and capping points, all while the enemy raids hell and projectiles at you. I played a lot of games thanks to those guys. A lot of classic late 90s, early 2000s PC games that I'm glad to have played and experienced in my youth. Then I found Unreal Tournament 1999 and Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds in an old unmarked cardboard box, like they were just sitting there, waiting for me to discover them. UT99 blew me away with the fast-paced action, all the cool and unique weapons, the killer soundtrack, and interesting maps. Red Faction introduced me to PC arena shooters. Unreal Tournament took me to the next level of arena shooters. I'm really not doing that game any justice, but you can bet your ass I brought that game to the next LAN party. And Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds. You know, I don't really remember playing this game with my friends that much, but I played it a lot by myself and I had a lot of fun with it. It was essentially just Age of Empires with a Star Wars theme, now that I look back at it, but it was still a good RTS. It was new to me. I wasn't used to having to juggle 3 resources. The way the tech system operated was new to me as well. I remember the games being slower than our usual CNC skirmishes. Perhaps that's why we didn't play it as often. But alas, I had to move again, away from my cool neighbors into the new and scary state of Florida. Times were even tougher. We were homeless a few more times, but we eventually settled down into a decent little apartment complex. And I finally made my first new console purchase with the cash that I had been saving for so long. Enter 2 new things. A new pre-built Dell PC from my grandmother, we'll get back to that later, and an Xbox 360 with Halo 3 and Fallout 3, purchased by yours truly. I had played Halo 1 a bit and Halo 2 a bit when I was visiting my uncle a few years before that, and remember really enjoying the multiplayer, especially voice chat shit talking. But I wasn't ready for Fallout 3. Fallout 3 was the first open-world RPG I had ever played, and it was another eye-opening experience for me. I was immersed in the world, exploring every nook and cranny, and was always delighted when I found a new cave or DC building filled with raiders to jib and loot to take. The freedom to just roam around and do what you want was new to me, and I ate it up. I remember my mom dropped me off at her friend's house one time so her friend could babysit me while my mom worked, or something like that. I don't remember too well. Her friend had a son, though, around my age, who also had a 360. I told him I liked Fallout 3 a lot, and he put me onto Oblivion. It was like Fallout 3 all over again. But this specific event led to another series of events. A series of events that led me back to PC gaming. Remember that pre-built Dell PC? Well, I bought Oblivion for it. This was before I knew what hardware requirements were, and boy was that an eye-opening slap in the face. Long story short, I couldn't play Oblivion, but in my research, I stumbled upon something that I could play. Morrowind. I couldn't tell you how many hours I put into that game. It was aged, awfully so. Everyone walked around like they had a stick up their ass, but the call of a new and mysterious world was too much to just ignore, and I was enamored with it all. And that was before I learned what mods were. Morrowind broke my modding cherry. Even more fitting since it was a Bethesda game. But before I knew it, my Morrowind experience was completely changed. I'd become a pub owner, buying the building from the old owner, managing it, and even gaining in-game money from it like you would an actual business. But like most people, you want more. You want something better. You need an upgrade. An upgrade I did. I didn't know the first thing about upgrading PC hardware, and boy was that a fucking rabbit hole. I can understand how some people feel intimidated by PC hardware, because as a young teen, delving into it for the first time, it really was just that. Extremely intimidating. At that point in time, info about PC building and PC hardware just wasn't as accessible as it is now. It was pretty much non-stop forum browsing, learning about what CPUs were compatible with my motherboard and what GPU I could stick in without changing the power supply that would give me some kind of sizable performance boost. And enter my brand new, to me, Intel E3200 and NVIDIA 9400 GT and 2 more gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, that was an upgrade, believe it or not. A single core Pentium up to a dual core Celeron. No more integrated graphics, now we got a discrete GPU. Also, 4 gigabytes of RAM in total. Wasn't a good upgrade, but it was an upgrade nonetheless. However, I could finally play some of the games I'd actually been wanting to play. Whether they were actually playable or not was arguable. Sub 20 frames per second in the modern titles that I did run, and that was on low settings. But I couldn't complain. I did get another small upgrade in the form of an NVIDIA GT 640 as a Christmas present one year. Then we were really booming. But believe it or not, that was my gaming rig up until 2015, and that was an interesting time for me as well. Pretty awful year overall. Moved to Texas, away from all of my friends, experienced heartbreak, had satellite internet with a 10 gigabyte data cap. But hey, I got my first job at a fucking chemical plant, on the fucking bottling line, with an air scrubber that barely fucking worked, working with a capping machine that also barely fucking worked, much to the detriment of my wrists, unfortunately. But hey, I got paid. Saved my money, and finally got to upgrade my computer again. However, this time was different. This time was a real upgrade compared to what I had. An AMD FX 8350, MSI 970 gaming motherboard, a whopping 8 whole gigabytes of RAM, a brand new AMD R9 380, a terabyte HDD, and a shiny new SSD boot drive. And for the first time, I entered the world of 60 FPS PC gaming. My horizons were broadened, I could finally play a game without the FPS chugging, and life was good. Fast forward to now, and I've upgraded again. Not just my PC, but my life as a whole in general. I moved out when I was 19 to come back to Florida. Just me, my desk, my PC, and a few boxes. I'm 24 now, and I've learned a lot. I've been living with the Ken Net crew, and the last 5 years have been some of the best. That doesn't mean it's all been easy. I've had my ups and downs. I wouldn't say I'm well off, but I've come a long way from where I was growing up. I don't worry about whether or not I'm going to be able to eat, or if I'm going to wake up to the power being shut off, or whether I'm going to be homeless by the end of the month anymore, because I know I'm going to make it. If there's one thing I have to take away from living with close to nothing, it's to appreciate the small things in life. I think that now it's more important than ever to appreciate what you have. The world's been a scary place these last few months, more so than ever before, but that's okay, because I know that at the end of the day, we're all going to make it.